What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Rock Your Brand podcast. And this episode, I am excited because, well, there's some things that we need to talk about. And this whole thing came up because I received an email. I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a little while. But the title of this episode is going to be my 3-step blueprint to turn side hustles into passive income streams. And it's something that I've been doing now for years. And some of you may or may not know, but pretty much everything that I've ever started as a side hustle. And it's just different than what side hustles are kind of known for now. Like side hustles now are like, okay, how can I go, I don't know, flip something, right? Like go buy something, flip it, make some extra money. Or some of these other, odd ones where, maybe you're going to, I don't know. Well, even driving for Uber, right? Like that's a side hustle, but it's not a side hustle that can lead to you owning your own business. So that's the difference for me. Whenever I've ever started a side hustle, for the most part, minus like when I was back in my construction years, I would go ahead and, do a deck on the side, right? Like I'd build a deck, but it was, for my father's business in a sense, or I was getting the lead from his business, but it wasn't building my own business. And so that's the difference. But I did want to break this down because a lot of you are either in business right now, which this is going to help you as well. And then there's some of you that are just starting, maybe starting on Etsy, maybe starting on Amazon, maybe you're starting a blog, a website, getting traffic, like any of that stuff. And all of this that I'm going to share with you will all make sense. It'll all kind of tie together. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I had someone email me and say, Scott, it seems like you were just talking about Etsy, or maybe you were just talking about Amazon, or maybe you were talking about these content sites where you build them and you call these things niche properties, which is basically kind of like a rental property that you own now because it's, a piece of digital real estate that's getting traffic and we're monetizing it. And then I hear you talking about email list building. And then I hear you talking about this YouTube thing now. You're really going hard on YouTube. And like, I'm kind of like wondering, like, what are you doing? Are you jumping from thing to thing? Are you jumping ship on Etsy? Like, what does it mean? And actually, I'm doing them all. So that's really what I'm going to be breaking down here. But really, that everything that we're doing does all tie together. And that's what I want to break down here on this episode. And I want to thank the gentleman that did write that email because it prompted me to write an email about it. The response was really good. I had a lot of emails come back and say, hey, Scott, thanks so much for explaining. I never doubted you. I didn't think you were jumping ship, but I could see how someone might think that, you're maybe kind of doing this and then doing that. But I thought it would also make a good podcast episode, a good YouTube video. So that's why we're going to discuss that here today. And I'm going to break it down for you and give you those 3 steps and things that you should be focusing on if you are starting a side hustle or if you want to grow something into a full-time gig, a full-time business. Chris, did I summarize that well, that intro?
I think so. And Scott, really what the difference is between what you and I call a side hustle and what most people call a side hustle is what you and I are looking for is something that you can turn into a full-time thing if that's what you want to do. If you want to replace your 9-to-5, you're never going to do that with taking surveys online. You're probably not going to do that, at least in this day and age, with driving on Uber, right? And so the way that you and I think about the side hustles that we talk about is more of a micro brand. And that's why we've started using that terminology even over something like a side hustle. It's a micro business that can turn into a bigger business. But the things that are successful and the things that make those types of side hustles or micro brands successful really come down to the 3 steps that we're talking about today. And while it may seem that sometimes we're talking about Etsy, sometimes we're talking about Amazon, sometimes we're talking about email marketing, sometimes we're talking about YouTube, sometimes we're talking about AI content generation, sometimes we're talking about niche-based websites. All of those things tie into these 3 steps in the blueprint that we're going to lay out today. And that's the thing I want everybody to focus on is it's not about the channel necessarily, right? There was a season for Etsy. There was a season. Do you guys remember MySpace? Like when that was all of the social media rage, right? Now there's Instagram has a new app, right? Called Threads, which is a Twitter clone. Channels change, but the 3 steps don't always. And so while it may seem like we jump from thing to thing, all of these things end up working together when you look at the blueprint. And that's really what we're talking about here today.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so let's just kind of dig in and kind of just start off with like the three different components. And then what we'll do is we'll drill into those. I'm not going to like make you wait to the end to tell you like the last one, because they're all important. They're all very, very important. But I'll give you some examples of like, number one, what they are, but then how we've used them over the years. Okay. And then how everything kind of ties together, how everything is kind of connected. So the very first thing is, and that's why we're not talking about it as a side hustle, although you could. So let me give you an example. If we're talking about starting a YouTube channel as a side hustle, I like that. And the reason why I like that is because we can then grow that into something that can become a lot bigger. And we'll go through like what that looks like here. And we've done other videos, other lives on that. But the very first thing that we need to do and that we focus on is the niche. Okay. And so picking the niche is huge. It's like Chris said, if we're doing a side hustle for like filling out surveys and that's what we're going to do, you're not doing anything other than you're going to put in an hour to fill out a survey and then get paid. And then you're going to find another survey and then you're going to get paid. So you're just kind of like doing work, getting paid. It's the same thing as a part-time job. Just go and work at, I don't know, Brick's Pizza and, become a server and you can, basically make some extra money. Same idea. But what we're talking about is like picking a niche that we can then do the other two things with. All right. So the very first thing is we're always trying to look at, for us anyway, it's things that we've been interested in or things that we've been passionate about. It's always led to that. That's how the ideas become something that I possibly would think about turning into a business, but I would start it as a side hustle. I'll give you a great example. And Chris, this is like so relevant right now. You and I, when we were doing our YouTube audience building workshop, I talked about something that I've been researching that I was looking into buying, and that is the Blackstone grill. It's a flat griddle grill. And man, I'll tell you, I did buy one. I did a lot of digging on YouTube. I found one. I got the 36-inch, and I've used it probably 6 times now, and I love it. But now I'm constantly seeing YouTube videos and I'm constantly watching YouTube videos. I actually have an apron now that says something along the lines of, I can make anything now. I watched it on YouTube or something like that. Right. So what I started thinking, I had to stop myself. I was like, man, I could just fire up the camera when I'm grilling something and just, post what I'm learning and post my recipes or post what I'm doing and maybe some tips that I wish I would have known when I got started. And I could grow that into something because I'm really kind of into it right now. But am I going to be into it a year from now? I don't know. And I've got so many other things going on that I don't want it to take away from what I'm currently doing. But immediately I thought about, I'm interested in this. There's an audience for this and there's ways to monetize this, which we're going to get into. But right away, I even sent it over to my son and I said, man, this would be my next channel. And he goes, I thought you said you weren't going to start anything new. Literally said that. And I go, I'm just kidding. But my wheels were turning. Right? Because I am into it. I'm so into it right now. I'm excited to cook on it every single night. So it's pretty cool. But the very first thing is like the niche. Like, what is the niche? For us, for brand creators, it's finding people like you that want to start a side hustle and turn it into a micro brand. We call it a micro brand, by the way, because we like building businesses that don't require a ton of employees. We can run it by ourselves, 1, 2 people, and maybe 3 if you want to hire like a VA or something like that. But something that we don't have to spend all day on that can still make 6 or 7 figures, but starting as a side hustle. And that's what we call micro brands. So that's like the introduction here is the very first component. The first thing in the blueprint is the niche, is figuring out what it is that you could, and you have to ask yourself this question: what could I every single day talk about, enjoy it, learn about? Maybe, like I said, grilling something and then talking about it and what you learned from it and what you would do differently, or it didn't work the same as it did for the person that you learned it from, but this is what you picked up. Like, what is something that you're just into that you could see yourself creating content around? That's really, I think, the very first question. And that's the thing that you're always going to be building off of too, right? So for us, for brand creators, it's like we're serving anyone right now that is maybe interested in Etsy, because that's kind of where we drop the line in the water to attract people that were interested in Etsy, because that's what my wife's doing, right? And I'm helping her with that. And so that's something that we're into. It's something we're doing. So I talk about it, right? And now the next thing is like, well, people are struggling with side hustles because there's a lot of side hustle talk out there. What does it mean to really start a side hustle that you can turn into a business? And that's really what we're starting to address now. And then we're talking about, just like today, what are the three components? What are the three things that we need to focus on? All right. So you see how it's even translating into what we're doing right here, right now in real time. It's the same idea. We picked the niche. Now we're building out inside of the niche, but we're only focusing on that audience. All right. So Chris, anything I left out there that you want to add to the first component, which is choosing your niche?
Yeah, I think for somebody like you, Scott, because you get really into stuff, seeing niches in everything that you do is a really obvious thing. So the question that I would have in my head would be, how do I find the thing that I'm passionate about? And you guys probably have heard us talk about the touchless method in the past. You've probably heard us talk about some of those kinds of things, but it really comes down to what makes you the most excited. What is something, and not saying that you have to do this right now, but what is something that you could talk about every single day without being worried about getting bored by it? Is it knitting? Is it crocheting? Is it grilling on a flat top? Is it grilling with charcoal? Is it fishing? Is it swimming? Like, it doesn't matter, but you have to think about, before you can even figure out what your side hustle should be, you have to think about the niche. And the niche that you want to serve is then going to determine the other two steps. And we'll get into them here in a second. We're not trying to hide those from you. We just want to talk about how important the niche is, because it really does set the foundation for the other two steps. Different niches are going to have different ways of turning your side hustle, however you decide to start that, into a passive income stream. The overall concept is going to be the same, but the channels that we use to do that might be different, or the methodologies that we use to do that might be different. And so it really comes down to understanding and starting with the niche, and really starting and focusing on, even before you say, I want to start an Etsy store, I want to start a niche website, I want to start a YouTube channel, I want to start an X, it should be, I'm really excited about, insert the name of the niche. And if you don't have that yet, you want to take a step back and start thinking through that process before you decide where you want to go with this. If you're serious about creating a side hustle that you can turn into a micro brand, which you can then replace your 9-to-5 with, rather than just jumping in an Uber or filling out surveys or launching an Etsy shop, you need to start with the niche before you can start to worry about how you're going to sell stuff. If you're going to sell stuff, do you need to create content? How do you need to create content? None of those things are important until you understand who the people are that you are going to serve.
Yeah. And here's the thing I will say on that too, because this is a big mistake that I see a lot of people making. And I say big mistake. It's a big mistake if it was me, right? For you, it might be okay. Maybe you just want to pick up an extra $100 a week or $200 a week, and you want to, drive for Uber, or you want to fill out surveys or any of that stuff, right? Maybe that's okay. That's all you're trying to do. And that's totally cool. Okay. Same thing with Etsy. Like right now, our methodology is different, way different than just about everyone that is teaching how to sell on Etsy, and also people that are getting started. And a lot of times it's because they're being taught by the people that are saying, well, just find a product that's selling, a trend, hop on it and sell it, and then find another one and then sell it, and then find another one and sell it. That doesn't interest me. Okay. And the reason why is because I don't want to be just chasing the next trend or the next product, and then hopefully I can land another one until that kind of fizzles out, and then I find another one. I don't want to do that. I want to build something that can over time grow exponentially. Okay. And the things that we're talking about today, that is how that will work. Okay. And I'll break it down. I'll give you guys, when we get into the third thing, you're going to see how this thing can grow into a lot of different passive income streams. All right. And I say passive, I say that lightly. Nothing is really truly passive. I mean, it kind of is. Like, YouTube is kind of passive, to be honest with you. I mean, it goes up and down. Your views can go up and down, but if you are just like, for me, I'm shooting 2 videos a week. Now I just upped it to 3. We're doing a live stream, and pretty much I just get paid when they get displayed. It's pretty passive. There's not much I'm doing there. An affiliate sale, after I create the content, someone goes through it, they buy it, or they click on it. I get paid. I don't have to really do anything. So those are somewhat passive, more passively than you having like a course or having a lot of customer service or things like that. We'll get into that. But what we're saying here is, the thing that we look at to set everything else up for success is that niche. And you being interested in it. I know people say, it doesn't matter about passion, doesn't matter about interest. It doesn't matter as far as like you can still be successful. But for the people that I see out there, they lose interest because they're not getting results quick enough. So why not do something that you're still going to want to do, even if you're not getting the views, even if you're not getting, the traffic or the money coming in the door yet? You're still wanting to do it because you're interested in it, right? It's just like me. If I was to do that grilling channel, I would still do it. I got to cook dinner every night. So why not just put a GoPro on my chest maybe? And, as I'm cooking, I commentate or something like, you know what I mean? Like I'm still doing it. And I enjoy it. So anyway, that's that. So very, very important. I would like to know too, if you guys are watching this on the replay, if you're here on YouTube, if you're here on the Facebook stream, whatever, or if you're on the podcast, you can always send us a message, but let us know in the comments, how many of you right now have a specific niche that you're focusing on? Drop that in the comments. We'd love to see that. All right, Chris, anything on that before we move on to the second step in the blueprint?
Niche selection, niche selection, niche selection. And Scott, I don't know if I'm the only one, but I felt like I needed to share it. You said jump on it. And now the only thing that I can think of is Apache by the Sugar Hill Gang. So I don't know. But if you nail the niche selection, even if you get it a third of the way correct, right? You don't have to have it perfectly drilled down to, I'm going to be serving underwater kayak bass fishermen, which would be a real talent if you could flip a kayak upside down, hold yourself inside of it. I guess that'd be a canoe, because then you could, no, that would be a kayak because they're sealed off, right? You flip that upside down and are netting fish underwater. You don't have to get that in depth with it, but if you at least have an understanding that you want to serve fishermen or outdoor people or whatever, that's enough to start to move into the second phase here, which you're going to share with us right now.
Yeah, I think, you know what, though, for the viewers out there that are hearing you say niche and me say niche, I think we need to say niche more.
Nicho.
Nicho? Niche? 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 I think it's just a fun word. It's a fun word because it has so much debate. Doesn't that word have so much debate, Chris? I think it's amazing how much that word annoys some people on how you say it.
It's kind of like the word, and I'm going to trigger a bunch of people, moist. My brother cannot hear that word, and it doesn't, like, it just gives him the heebie-jeebies. And I think niche triggers people in the same way because they're like, no, I've always heard it niche. Turns out, y'all, that in English, there's two ways to pronounce the word. If you look at any English dictionary, right? In Spanish, there's one, and it actually agrees more with the English pronunciation that you and I typically use. But what I have noticed, Scott, since that controversy popped up, is it really depends on who I'm talking to. Yeah. If somebody says niche to me, I'll usually say niche back, and it's not like a conscious thing. It's not a conscious thing. But I know when I'm talking to you, I always say niche. I noticed it when we were at Seller Summit because somebody said niche, and I was going through the conversation.
You went down that road.
And I said, I don't, that sounded weird to me. Like, that doesn't sound like how I normally say that word. But yeah, I think we should just say niche, nicho every time we say the word, just to drive people crazy.
This has no value to anyone right now, though, what we're talking about, but I think it's fun. And every time that I hear someone else that's like, like a big influencer, or maybe even like Mark Cuban, right? Like he says niche, and I'm like, that guy's like a billionaire, right? And he's saying it wrong. Maybe. Doesn't care.
This entire debate is just proof that English is a silly language. You can look at 3 different words in English and they are spelled essentially the same way.
Yeah.
But they are pronounced 3 totally different ways. And it's because English is a mishmash of German and French and English and Latin and like a whole bunch of other things. And we just take words and pronounce them however we want. So the real moral of the story is whether you're selecting a niche, a nicho, a niche, whatever you want to call it, that needs to be the first thing that you're doing. A market, right?
You could go with that.
A group of people who can identify themselves using a common term, right? Or share a common interest, right? Let's just go to a dictionary definition and make it 30 words long every time we need to say the word. I like that.
All right. Let's move on. I know people don't want to hear about that. Some will find that funny. Okay. So let's move on. So number 2 in the blueprint, and this is something that if you've been following the YouTube channel for whatever, the last 5 months, 6 months, 6 years, okay, you probably have seen us do this where we are constantly building an audience, and we're talking about building an audience. And so we have, well, number one, I personally have, and so has Chris, podcasted, still do to this day, might be listening to it right now. Done YouTube. I've done YouTube actually before I even did this channel, way back in the day when my wife and I had our photography business. So did that, right? So YouTube. Let's see. Played around with some Facebook stuff, right? Building that audience. Instagram, played with it a little bit. Not a huge fan because it doesn't give me that evergreen effect. We'll talk about that a little bit too. And then email list building. Great audience builder. So you probably, if you've been on my email list, you know that you've heard us talk about email list building, right? You hear us talk about creating content, blog content that Google can send people your way. YouTube. You've heard it all. So even though it might seem like Chris and I are talking about Etsy, and then we stop talking about Etsy for a minute, and we go over here and we start talking about YouTube, and then we go over here and we start talking about blog content. The reason why is, number one, whatever we're focusing on in our businesses the most is probably what we're going to talk about, right? Now, the email said, so, is your wife done with Etsy? No, she's not. Actually, I hear her over there typing right now, probably talking to a customer. She was doing orders this morning, and then she was doing designs yesterday. So no, it's alive and well. And she is more busy in the Q4. We're realizing that's a very Q4 heavy business, which is great. That's fine as long as we know it. But no, we're still doing that. And the blog stuff that I talked about years ago, and talk about niche properties, about building a content site and turning on an ad network. Still doing that. Got 2 sites that are still running. One of them is actually tied to my wife's Etsy shop. Now we get about 30,000 visitors off that content every single month. We also make about $1,000 to $2,000 a month passively in ads that are generated from that content. Still doing it. Writing articles. I'm not writing them. I actually have a VA that writes the articles for that site. About 3 articles a week on that. Just like clockwork, right? Do I talk about it every day? No, but I'm still doing it, right? And why am I doing it? Because it's a way to get traffic. It's a way to build an audience. Where? In that niche. Okay. Do I still have emails that are being built from that audience or from that content? Yes, I have people joining that email list every single day, maybe 10 to 20 every single day, like clockwork. Okay. I'm not paying for them. It's just from the content. What's that doing? Building the audience. So when I talk about email list building, am I doing it here in Brand Creators? Yes. Am I doing it over in the other brand? Yes. Right. It's all connected. It's audience. So right now, I want you guys to say it with me. Audience building. All right. Just understand that. Audience building. That is something you are going to want to get good at. You're going to be working on that for as long as you're in business. Audience building, and also nurturing that audience and delivering value to that audience, building a relationship with that audience, right? That is what's going to be the heartbeat of your business. That's what it is. You can't have a business without traffic. Now, if you're listening to this and you have an Etsy shop and you're like, okay, I was kind of wondering how this all kind of tied to me, right? Well, let's say that you started a YouTube channel, built up an audience in your niche, and then started sending traffic over to your Etsy shop. Probably would help it. What if you built an email list off of that audience? Send it over to your Etsy shop. You think that would help it? Probably, right? What if you started building an email list and now you had other products that aren't yours, but you're an affiliate for, and you recommended those products? Could you make a commission on those? Yeah, you could, right? So all of this stuff starts to build and compound from, say it with me, the audience, right? So we just talked about number 1. We've established the niche. Now we move into audience building. The very first thing we do in anything that we generally start. We had a brand that we started with a neighbor of mine, and we ended up selling it. We ran it for about 4 years. And the very first thing that we did to start that, which by the way, that did over $1 million in sales on Amazon through the products that we sold, and we sold that business. Okay. We exited that business from picking a niche, building an audience, and then into step 3, which is selling products. We'll get there in a minute. Guys, it's not like this major thing, right? It's like very simple. But a lot of times people, they get confused or they overcomplicate it. There's really not much more to this other than you got to have a good niche that are there, right? There's people there, there's heartbeats, and then the audience build of those heartbeats are going to then allow you to sell product. Chris, what do you got there? I know you're chomping at the bit there.
I got a series of yes or no questions for you, Mr. Volker. If I'm trying to build an audience, can I do that on Facebook?
Yes.
Just yes or no. TikTok,
Yes.
Instagram,
Yes.
Pinterest,
Yes.
email marketing,
Yes.
YouTube,
Yes.
ads.
Yes, I guess. I mean, the ads would lead people to your platform, but yes. Yes.
Threads,
Yes.
uh,
Twitter?
MySpace.
MySpace, Twitter. Yeah.
Yeah. The traffic channel is going to change, right? But it doesn't matter which one. All of these things really work. Every traffic channel does work. It's just a question of for whom and how much, right? So if your niche is not on TikTok, you probably shouldn't be spending time on TikTok, right? If your niche is not on Threads, then maybe you shouldn't be spending time on Threads. This is why finding your niche is so important to begin with. We have to start with the niche in mind. Where are these people hanging out? What are they doing? How can we get in front of them so that we can start to build the relationship with them? At the end of the day, every single traffic channel works. And if you go where your audience is going to start to grow. The real trick here is that if you can, you should be focusing on more evergreen things. You may have heard Scott talking about the original YouTube that he started way back in 2008 and then changed the name because of some legal interests to a different channel that then started in 2009 that then led him down this entrepreneurial journey, right? Those people happened to be on YouTube. And those videos that he created in 2009 technically still bring people in. And Scott, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but those videos are still public and still get views. They're not getting thousands of views a day, but they're getting.
There's a couple of those videos that have over 300,000 views on them, which is crazy.
Which is mind-boggling, right? So let's just say each of those videos gets 10 or 20 views a day, right? That's pretty evergreen versus something like doubling down and focusing all of your time, energy, and effort on Instagram. Who is going to see your story that you spent 6 hours on tomorrow? Literally no one, because it's not possible. Who's going to see your post? Maybe one person. And then on Friday, because today is Wednesday, half a person. And then on Saturday, a quarter of a person, right? We're getting down into fractions because nobody goes to your Instagram profile to scroll through all of the pieces of content that you ever created. So if you can focus somewhere like YouTube, if you can focus somewhere like building out a niche website, if you can focus on growing your email list, which you own and control and is an evergreen asset because every time you hit send, at least a chunk of those people are going to see your message versus Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Threads even, right? We don't really know how that's working out because that's fairly new at this point. But if we can focus on the evergreen channels, if we can find any sort of an evergreen channel where our niche is hanging out, that would be the place where I would start to build an audience because the time, energy, and effort that you put into that is going to grow exponentially versus going to some of these other shiny object type channels like your TikToks, your Instagrams, your other kinds of social media networks where, yes, there are people there and yes, your audience might be there, but the effort that you're putting in today doesn't translate into anything beyond midnight tonight. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I love that. I'm glad you went there because, man, that is something that you have to decide. And me personally, again, if I'm looking at where do I start to build that audience right here today, what I'm looking at is, and I've always thought about it this way, is I've always thought about it, but I've been tempted with the other ones. Okay. And what I mean is I'm always looking at if I create a piece of content, okay, an asset for my audience to find, discover, and come over to my platform where I'm directing them, right? It could be on YouTube. It could be on even on Pinterest, right? Because Pinterest is a search engine in a sense, right? But if I was starting today, which I am starting today, I feel like I'm starting every day, right? But if I'm starting today, if I was starting that Grill Master channel, it'd be on YouTube. I'd start there and then I would build everything off the back end of that because I'm seeing so much opportunity right now within YouTube. I believe because YouTube is different now where it's not just a search-based type of search, audience where all you're doing is going there and like how to cook on, the Blackstone griddle. It's more of, like don't make these 5 mistakes on your Blackstone griddle, right? It's those things. And then it's more in the discovery because now that I've shown interest in that, I've touched it once. I literally watched one video. All of a sudden my feed on my phone starts becoming, populated with all of these other suggestions. And that's the cool thing now. Now, is it still search? Yeah, I'm still going to search how to clean my Blackstone grill the right way, right? Because haven't done it yet, right? So I'm going to search that, of course. So there's a mixture there, but it's different than it used to be, because years ago it was, you were always going after the search results potential. How many searches does this long tail keyword get? And I'm going to go after that. That's what I'm going after. It's way different now. That's why I would start there. Subscribers don't mean as much on YouTube anymore, even though it's a vanity metric. It's a cool metric to look at. Oh, look at me. I've got 68,000 subscribers. Great, right? But it really comes down to the views, and your subscribers do not necessarily help your videos get thousands of views. So we won't go into all of that, which, by the way, should probably put a little shameless plug in here. If you are interested, we just taught what we know as of right now. Again, we're not experts, but we taught what we've done so far. We've added over 35,000 new subscribers in the last 9 months. And we've done over $26,000, I think it is, to date on ads, which actually, it would have been a lot more if we would have had better RPMs, and we won't get into all of that stuff. But we actually just did a workshop, 4 hours, by the way, but we broke it all down. It's all chunked down. If you guys want to go and access that, it's now available. You can head on over to brandcreators.com/YT, and you can go sign up for that. Very, very inexpensive, under $100. So go check that out if you're interested in kind of seeing what we've learned and what we've done. And we also show you a brand new channel that a buddy of mine started after we had a beer. And it's doing pretty well. He just actually launched a video the other day, and it's over 1,100 views on a fairly new channel. So he's got some videos that are over 6,000-7,000. So pretty excited for him. But we actually break that down. We show you guys the niche. We actually do some thumbnail creation. We do a whole bunch in that workshop. So if you're interested, go check that out. All right. So evergreen, I think that's the big thing here I want you guys to take away, is like TikTok's cool, right? Instagram, cool. Twitter, cool. This new Threads, cool, but they're not evergreen. Okay. Now, should you use them? Yes, after you've already started and really honed in on your main channel of choice. For us, everything starts with a video, and that's on YouTube. And then from there, everything is kind of like secondary, right? We're not even doing a lot of YouTube shorts right now, because we see more potential in the other, and we don't want to take any of our time and bring it away from our long form. So right now, I'm doubling down on YouTube. Why? Because it's an evergreen channel. I put out content. I can get views for years to come. And then building the email list, that's another major thing that we're doing always. And then all of the other stuff is kind of like supplementary. So hopefully that helps. And that's number 2, is the audience build. Moving on to number 3, Chris. You want to reveal this one? You want to get into that one? I'll let you go ahead and take the.
Yeah, this one is the real complicated step of selling them something, right? It doesn't matter whether it's digital or physical or what channel we're using, whether it's Amazon or Etsy or TikTok shops or your own website, right? Our third step here is kind of the monetization side of this. And you can monetize by building an audience. But realistically, the more long-term, evergreen, bigger revenue a lot of times will come from having something to sell. So yes, if you focus on that step number 2, you have a niche and you're building an audience, and you're doing it with something like YouTube, you can monetize directly with ads. And that's a nice passive form of income, right? It's much more passive than having an e-commerce store like an Etsy shop, in that, yes, you should probably still create content, but realistically, if you stopped today, you'd still have some money coming in essentially in perpetuity, even if it's just a few dollars or a few cents, right? So you'd get some mailbox money. But the biggest thing here that turns a side hustle into a micro brand and gives you the ability to quit your 9 to 5 in a lot of cases, or to scale this, or to just be more stable, is to turn around and that audience that you've been building, to sell them something. Now, the goal here should not be to just sell them garbage, right? If we're taking the time to find a niche and build our audience, we should be selling them something that is high quality. And the answer to what to sell them is, what does your audience need? Do they need tips on how to use a Blackstone grill better? Well, we could put together a series of videos. We could sell them a PDF. We could do a bunch of different things there, or we could start making accessories for the Blackstone grill and selling them in an e-commerce setting like our own website, Amazon or Etsy. Again, just like with building an audience, the best channel for this is going to change. And if you listen to this podcast in 2015, you would have heard Scott and I talking about how big of an opportunity Amazon FBA is, right? You don't even need an audience. You could start just by selling them something. And that's the same opportunity that we saw on Etsy. And it's still there on Etsy. You can make dollars on day one just by skipping that second step and going straight to the third step and then backtracking to building an audience, because there are people in niches that are buying things on these platforms. Amazon, without that second step now, is substantially more difficult than it was 4 or 5 years ago. Etsy will be like that eventually. And that's why we're having this conversation right now. If you aren't thinking about this in these 3 steps, do I have a niche? Am I building an audience? And then am I selling them something? You're going to lose out to the people who are doing that. Why? Well, if you think about a channel like Etsy, we've talked endlessly about their search engine algorithm and why products rank. And it really comes down to, if they send somebody to that listing, will they buy? If I have 100,000 people on my email list that will buy anything that I send them to, I launch a product in your niche on Etsy and I drive all of my traffic over there, I'm immediately going to shoot to the top of the organic rankings, because Etsy goes, man, everybody that comes to this listing buys it. We should probably show it to everybody. So I don't want anybody, Scott, to focus on the channel. I want them to focus more on, is there another way that we can monetize? Yes, ads are good, but is there another way that we can monetize through selling them physical or digital products? And the answer is, if you're doing those first 2 things, pretty much, yeah. I can't think of a niche. And if anybody who's listening to this either live or on the recording can think of a niche that you can't sell stuff to, let me know. And I'd like to put that out as a challenge to everybody that's hanging out with us, just to hear if anybody comes up with any. Do you have any off the top of your head, Scott?
I mean, whenever you're focusing on just the product, it can be difficult, right? So there's some people right now that are selling shirts for teachers, right? So let's just say that they're selling shirts that are personalized for teachers, right? And that's their niche, right? They're just catering towards teachers. So, okay, could we start there and say, okay, now, okay, I know that, either they need, it might not even be the teachers that are buying the shirts, by the way. It's going to be a kid or their parent buying it for the teacher to say, Miss Carol's the best teacher ever, right? Like something like that. So it's not necessarily for the teacher, but what you'd have to think to yourself is like, okay, how do I then reverse engineer, like you were saying, or kind of like backtrack, like how would I build an audience? You wouldn't build an audience for parents that were getting a gift for a teacher, although you could, but there's more opportunity for the teacher. So then you'd have to start thinking through that. So to answer your question, like there's some out there that it's more difficult than others, but I think there's always an angle on how you can do it, right? And in this example, I would say I would rather go after the teacher than a parent buying a gift for a teacher once, is what I'm saying. So that's kind of where, and then the content play would be like, okay, now you can do like lesson plans for the teacher. You can help them with that, because maybe you're a teacher, maybe you're an ex-teacher, maybe you're a retired teacher, and you have, things that you can add to help them jazz up their classroom or have, kids have a better time or learn better. And then you can have all those accessories. So I think it is harder starting that way, to be honest with you. I think it's harder starting with product and then trying to build audience. If I could do it over again, I would rather start with niche, audience, and then product. But I'm not saying you can't think that way and say, oh, let me just start with the product, start selling something on Etsy, and then kind of work backwards. I think you can. I would rather start the other way.
And I think as long as you have step 1, right? If you find a channel that works really well, like Etsy, you could skip to step 3, but then you have to think about building an audience regardless, right? So like if you're trying to monetize right away, there's nothing wrong with going somewhere like Etsy, as long as you have that niche selected and you're consciously thinking, what is my audience? Where are they hanging out? And how can I start to build that to have long-term success with this? You could skip to, selling them something if you really wanted to or needed to. And we did a whole podcast on like when and how that should work. But to me, as long as you have that niche, there's no niche that you can't sell something to, and there's no niche that you can't build an audience in. It's just a question of which channel works the best right now whenever you're making this decision, or what types of things are they interested in, where are they hanging out, some of those kinds of things. So which channel is working right now applies to building an audience and to selling them something.
Yeah. Let me kind of give a breakdown. I kind of want to give this breakdown because I think for people that are coming to this video or this live stream, depending on if you're watching this live or not, you probably want to know, like, okay, like if I was to start a side hustle, like I'm going to treat this as a side hustle, what's the fastest way to get this to where you are making money? Because I think at the end of the day, that's the reward, right? Making your first dollar. And I understand that. We also have to realize that it does take some time. Now, are there faster ways to it? Can you find an Etsy product that's doing really well right now and then tap in on that in short term? For sure. You absolutely can. But are you willing to sacrifice maybe early results like that could be then gone to something else that could be slow and steady and then it builds over time? That's how I like to operate. But let me just kind of give you like my thoughts. Like right now, let's say that we found the niche and we said to ourselves, okay, cool. Let me go see if there's people on YouTube. I'm kind of starting there because that's where I want to build my audience right now. Because for me personally, I see the opportunity. So let's say I go there, I see some other channels that are doing pretty well, even some young channels that don't have a lot of subscribers, but they get some good views on their videos. It's a good sign, right? So I'm going to start there. And the very first thing, the target that I'm shooting for is not how do I create a product? How do I sell a product? Like I'm not going down that road yet. What I'm going down the road of is how can I be consistent? How can I get really good at coming up with a good topic that has already been proven to work for my niche, getting views? How can I get to 500 subscribers? And the reason why is because that's when I am qualifying to, it's one of the elements to qualify for monetization. How do I get to 500 subscribers? And how do I get to 3,000 watch hours in the shortest period of time? And I think that that can actually happen. If you have a video that takes off, it can happen in a matter of a week, right? But for the most part, I would probably allow around 6 to 8 weeks for that to happen. If you are doing this, you're posting at least one video per week. Okay. And so my goal here would be, let's go ahead and get this thing rolling, right? Let's put all our energy there. Our energy isn't in selling anything yet. Our energy is building that audience right out of the gate, right? Because I know that if I get to that 500 subscribers, I get to 3,000 watch hours, immediately I get to turn on ads. I can start making money, even if it's $1, right? I get to make that almost immediately, all right? Then I still keep doing that. Now I start thinking to myself, all right, can I take some of my attention and can I start thinking about something on Etsy that I could sell? Could I start setting up a shop? Can I take my existing shop? Whatever, right? If you already have stuff in place, maybe you can already connect that. But I'd be thinking, okay, is there something there I can do digitally, or is there something there I can do print on demand? I'd start looking down at that. The other thing I'd be doing is I'd be thinking, what other products could I be talking about that I could put a link using my Amazon Associates link and make a commission? So in my case, let's say that I was talking about my Blackstone grill. Well, guess what? They're between $300 and $700 and $800. Guess what? I talk about it. I put a link in my description. People click on it. I might get paid a commission for that. So that's another way that I'd be thinking about it. But it all starts with getting the attention and getting the views. And then from there, I'm able to monetize. The very first way is by placing ads on my videos. Then I get to do I'm Amazon affiliate stuff, affiliate marketing. And then from there, I get to start talking about my products. And that's what I'd be doing for probably the first 6 months to a year and only focusing on that. How's that, Chris, for a little blueprint for you?
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And Scott, everybody tries to overcomplicate this process, right? Because they want it to be more complex. They want to know, okay, what's the exact traffic channel that will work for underwater kayak bass fishing? What's the exact place where I can find mountaintop basket weavers? And the answer is, it depends. But if you think about it in this 3-step blueprint, especially using that roadmap you just laid out, you can turn anything that is a side hustle into a passive income stream and eventually into a micro brand that can replace your 9-to-5. And it really boils down to 3 basic things, which is finding your niche. Again, just going back and talking about that really quickly, it's something, the biggest things that are going to be the biggest wins for you are something that you can talk about day in and day out without getting bored of it. If you think about it through that lens, it becomes a lot easier. Then we're building an audience. We're just going to find where the other people who identify with the niche we just selected, where are they hanging out? Where are they spending time? How can we get in front of them? And then we can sell them something. Yes, we can also monetize a little bit more passively, like Scott was just talking about with YouTube ads or ads on our website, some of those kinds of things. But we also want the ability to sell them something physical or digital, right? Print on demand or a digital product. Now I have physical stuck in my head, Scott. That's just how my brain is working today. Everything's working in songs. But we want to have the ability to monetize in multiple different ways. That's what I'm calling sell them something, right? Have something for them to buy that we can then monetize that audience that we've built out of the niche.
Yeah. And those are the 3 steps, right? It's number one. I don't even say 3 steps. It's 3 components, really. It is. I mean, they are in kind of sequential order, but they are components. They are the building blocks. And so whenever you hear us talking about YouTube, it's audience building. If you hear us talking about threads, which I actually just started a 30-day challenge. I don't know if you guys watched that video on the YouTube channel. You might want to look that one up, but I'm documenting me doing a 30-day case study using threads. And I'm only allowed to spend 15 minutes a day. So we are going to be testing that, and early results are kind of to be expected. It's not like earth shattering. But I'm going to ride it out. I think I'm on day 6 or 7 right now. And I'm posting about once to maybe 3 times per day. Very simple though. And actually I just posted one of my new apron that I got for my, my little Blackstone there. My father sent it to me. It's pretty funny. If you want to check that out, you can go over to Threads and look me up. I'm over there. But yeah, so it's like you just have to pick an audience platform that you feel like you can show up on. And then you just have to commit to that, to doing that, to that platform. And like right now, I have not missed a Tuesday or Friday video. We've done a Wednesday live, and now we're adding a Sunday video because we're going to test it for a few months and see how it does. Because I don't know, the more views you get, the more audience you build, the more traffic equals more money through ads, through people signing up for affiliate stuff, for people joining our email list, for people going over to our website and our blog, everything. Everything rises when we get those up, and we're helping more people. So it's a win-win. So you just have to be committed to it, and you have to show up consistently. That's the biggest thing for a lot of people. And if you're thinking about YouTube and you're like, oh, I don't know about showing up on video, honestly, like, I had a video that I did at one of my live events where I showed me the very first time I was trying to create a video before I ever did any video on YouTube. I couldn't even get through it. It was horrible. But I got better at it, right? I got better because I did more reps. The more reps we do, the better we get. And that's my philosophy. It really is. So if you guys have any questions on this, you can drop them in the comments, whether you're here live or not. If you're on the podcast, you can always submit those at support@brandcreators.com and just submit a question there. But if you guys have questions here, drop them in the comments, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube, and we'll go ahead and answer them in the comments. But yeah, this is something that I'm pretty excited about because I'm hearing a lot about side hustles out there, but not the kind of side hustles that I personally think can grow into something, meaningful and something that could grow for you to be something really, really life-changing. And that's really why I wanted to shoot this here today and kind of get here and answer any questions that you guys had.
So Scott, if we were going to walk through this process with your new Blackstone grill, what would this look like? Can you give us just like a 2-minute rundown of what that would look like?
Absolutely. Okay. Very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to YouTube and I'm going to go ahead and put my name up there. Well, first, let me back up. I'm going to create my name. I'm going to pick a name. I'm going to make sure that it's not trademarked. I learned that lesson once, a long time ago. Learned that lesson. See, you learn by doing. I learned that there was a name that I was using that was trademarked, didn't know it, and I had to change my name. So make sure that you do that trademark search. And then from there, I'd buy the domain name just to make sure that I could have it. And then I would go ahead and set up my YouTube channel. And the setup is very simple. Basically, it's done through Google, your Google Suite, your Gmail, all that stuff, right? You just connect it, you open up your YouTube channel, and then create a basic banner, and then I would get ready to shoot my first video. My first video would probably be whatever I'm cooking on the grill tonight. Like literally, I'd be like, guys, welcome to the whatever channel. And just wanted to just say I'm excited tonight because this is the first time I'm going to be making BLTs, and I'm going to be doing some bacon on there. I'm going to be toasting some bread. I'm going to be, whatever, right? Putting all this stuff together. I'm going to see how it goes. If you guys have any tips for me, I'm brand new at this. If you guys got any tips, drop them in the comments. But that's what we're going to do here. I'm going to go ahead and walk you through cooking my bacon for the first time on the Blackstone grill. Let's do it. And then I would jump in and I'd start cooking and I'd maybe make some jokes, whatever was happening, I would just commentate it, nothing fancy. And then I would probably bring it into the editing tool that I like, which is ScreenFlow. I've used iMovie before. I've used Final Cut. I just find the ScreenFlow for me. I'm on the Mac. Works pretty easily. It's easy to maneuver and edit. And I would probably just do some basic edits. And what I mean by basic is like what we call jump cuts. We actually go through all of this too inside of our YouTube audience building workshop. If you want to check that out, little shameless plug, brandcreators.com/YT. And then I would publish it. That's what I would do. Now, the other thing that I left out there that I've learned that I would do is I would make sure before I go ahead and upload that, I would do some research on some titles that have done well. Okay. And I would also look at thumbnails because those are the two main key ingredients to a successful YouTube channel is getting a good click-through rate. And that comes from a good title, but also a good thumbnail. So those are the two things that I would do. And I kind of skipped over them because, well, it's something that I already do automatically and I didn't think through it. So that's what I would do there. Make sure that those two things are on point. And then I would just upload the video. And then I would do another one the next time I'm cooking on the grill. And then the next time I'm cooking on a grill, I do it again. And I'd probably buy a GoPro and put it on my hat or something, right? I would do something like that. Maybe even I would have my GoPro because I do have a GoPro. I'd probably do that. And then I would probably have another one that's just filming me. And then I could maybe do 2 shots, something like that. Nothing too complicated. And then I would do that consistently. I would make sure I do at least 1 video per week. And then from there, I'd go ahead and start looking at the analytics inside of YouTube, and I would start learning what is starting to take, what is starting to grab hold of the YouTube algorithm. And then I would start creating more videos with those topics in mind. And then I would just keep doing that for 3 to 4 months. That's it. Head down. That's what I'm doing. Now, could I go over to Etsy, start putting on some products there that are having to do with grilling and things like that? You could, but I would rather spend my time focusing more. If I got more time, I'm going to post another video. Instead of doing 1 video, I'm going to do 2. Instead of doing 2, I'm going to do 3. And I'm just going to really, really double down on that. So that's it in a nutshell, Chris.
So you'd be starting the Naked Chef YouTube channel and grilling in just an apron.
That'd be great.
That I think is, if somebody doesn't already have that idea, that would blow my mind. But
Yeah.
What is our niche there? So our niche is grilling or, outdoor cooking with a sub niche of like outdoor griddles / Blackstone grills, right? Because there's probably other kinds. You could put a griddle on a regular grill and get essentially the same effect. So what we're talking about here is the grilling niche. So here's a question, Scott. Can we sell stuff to people in the grilling niche once we build that audience?
Yeah.
The picture you sent me yesterday, which by the way, was not him grilling naked. He was fully clothed and he had an apron on, right? Like your dad bought you that apron because he knew you got the new grill. And it was kind of like, don't worry. I think it says, don't worry, I can do this. I watched a YouTube video, something like that, right? So that would appeal to that niche, but Grill Daddy would appeal to that niche, right? There's probably 100 little kitschy things that we could say. Scott would probably say something in one of the YouTube videos like flame on, that would become a joke in the community, right? Something like that. I'm no teppanyaki chef. Scott, do you know what teppanyaki is? Like Benihana's, right? I'm no teppanyaki chef, but I love flaming onions, right? Something like that. Niche-y type sayings. Yes. Are there people buying stuff on Etsy for people in the grilling niche? Yes. Are there people buying stuff for people on Amazon? Yes. Are there digital products in that space? Yes. And so if we start with those two things, we start with the knowledge that we are in the grilling niche, and then we start with a way to build the audience. For most people, it's going to be something more on the evergreen side like YouTube. If you are terrified by the idea of being in front of a camera, you can start a content-based website and do essentially the same thing. It's a little bit more work, in my opinion. If you can get over the minor technical hurdles of learning how to do some really basic editing, like Scott, you alluded to, we do cover in the workshop, and somebody had actually asked if we talk about how to do that, if we show how to do that. That is covered in the workshop. If you guys are interested in that, you can go to brandcreators.com/YT and get access to that. But that'll kind of get you up to speed. And once we have those two things, we have our niche and we have our audience, then it's a matter of just pulling the lever on other ways to monetize. And with that in mind, Scott, Salama over on YouTube had asked, is it easier or faster to monetize with physical products or digital products once you've built an audience outside of ads? So thinking about that, we're going to monetize there first. And I told you when we did that YouTube workshop, I need to write it up here in all of my colorful chalk that I have in this place. But it depends. It depends on what your audience is buying more of and where is the biggest need in that space. And that's my opinion on it. I want to get your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's a one size fits all. It's like you know, physical products going to do better than digital products. It's just your niche, your brand is going to serve the audience different items, right? It's just, it's hard to say like, oh, digital is going to be way better. Yes, if you can make digital work, it is going to be better because there's less headaches, right? As far as inventory goes, right? There's a lot less, customer service stuff. You don't have to have people that are waiting for their orders to get in the mail, right? Like, so if you can do digital, of course, your margins are going to be higher. That would be amazing. So there's not like a one size fits all. And I think, again, you're kind of like going too far down the road, right? Like some of you know, I started the podcast years ago and recorded 56 episodes before I ever made a dime. And that's because I followed my same advice. Put the head down, build the audience, right? Monetization will happen. The other thing we didn't even talk about, Chris, let's say, for example, I build up that Blackstone channel and I get that thing to a good sizable audience. I get good views, right? We didn't even talk about there's sponsors out there that would love for me to mention their product, or they might send me a product and then they'll pay me $1,000 to review it. Like maybe even more, $5,000, depending on how big the audience is. So we didn't even talk about that, right? So in the very beginning, we have to think about the niche and then we have to think about the audience. That is it. Done. I just shot a video on the YouTube channel that it had a nice, beautiful picture of myself and my wife having a drink, cheering. And it was basically, the title was the #1 skill that helped me make $1.7 million in 12 months. And what is that #1 skill? I'll give away the secret. It's building an audience, right? Like that's what it is, right? Now I go into more details and I give you guys some different examples. I talk about our photography business. I talked about, our first digital product business, like all of that stuff. So go watch it. It'll definitely, I think it's like 8 minutes and 40 seconds. It's not that long. The reason why I know that is because I wrote an email this morning and I was going to write 8 minutes and 40 seconds to let people know it's not a long video. Go watch it. So the bottom line is this. And the reason why I shot that video, I said it in the video, was this is the video that I would have shot for myself to watch when I first started, to know the importance of building the skill of how to build an audience. So I can't stress that enough. So right now I would just head down, build audience. Now, again, if you're already selling on Etsy, don't stop doing that. It's just now, how can you bolt on audience building? So this way here, you're not just like everyone else. How do I get to the top search in SEO? How do I get to the first page? You don't even know if there's that much demand there for that product with all of the people that are showing up in search. Wouldn't you rather have an audience that doesn't even know you maybe sell on Etsy? And then you go, hey, by the way, I got product here I sell on Etsy. You should go get it. Here it is. Right? Like, makes a lot of sense to be able to direct your own traffic to that platform. And then guess what? SEO is going to become a lot easier, because as long as your listing is somewhat optimized and you drive more sales than the top SEO'd listing is, you're going to outrank them, period. Guaranteed. All right. So yeah, audience building is like the hub of everything. It's the heartbeat of the business. Like I said.
I love it. So Scott, I wanted to recap this really fast for everybody. What is the 3-step blueprint to turn side hustles into passive income streams, and then turn those passive income streams into micro brands that can replace your 9-to-5? Find a niche, right? In that example of the Blackstone grill, in any of the examples that we've talked about, it really comes down to finding the niche. And if you have an audience, then you can figure out how to sell them something. If you're selling something, then you just have to look at who's buying that and then figure out where they hang out online to build out that audience. So it's find a niche, build an audience, sell them something. Steps 2 and 3 there, you can kind of flip around depending on where you are in your journey. But if you don't have both of them, you're never going to turn what you're doing into a passive income stream. You can't build an audience driving for Uber. You can't build an audience or sell them something filling out surveys. I guess technically you could sell bottled water to people who are already in your Uber. That would be kind of a jerk move. But you could sell them something, but that's not really building an audience. That's just capturing somebody that's already there. And so if we think about our side hustles in this way, and we pass through whatever ideas we have in our head and say, if I'm doing this, can I find a niche, build an audience, and sell them something? If the answer is yes, then it may be worth looking into. If the answer is no, then my suggestion would be move on to a different side hustle opportunity.
Love it. We did have a question in here, and it did bring up a good point. Back to selling to the buyer versus the recipient of the gift. How to sell barbecue to women for their man. So this wouldn't be the main thing, right? Like, so I would still be like, so again, if we're thinking about people that are going on Etsy right now and they're saying like, I want to sell barbecue shirts and aprons with funny sayings and mugs and for the grill master, let's say, right? So you are really on that Etsy platform. You really are targeting people that are buying gifts for the grill master for the most part, right? Nothing wrong with that. But there's more opportunity for you to build an audience for the grill master himself or herself, right? Like there's way more audience there for that than there is for the other, in my opinion, right? Because there's more things that we can lead to. That person that's barbecuing, I'll give you a perfect example. The minute I got that grill, I went back out. I went out twice. I went to Lowe's. I looked for some accessories. I wanted to get a cleaning thing for it, like a brush and a scraper, right? And then I wanted to get some squirting bottles so I could put the oil on it or I could put the water on it, right? I wanted to get a couple of those. And Lowe's didn't have those, but they had the other. So then I ran over to Walmart and I saw they had a whole bunch of stuff. So I got one of those, the thing to smash the burger down on. It's like a weighted, like, I don't know what it's called. There's probably a name for it.
It's called a press.
A press. Yeah. Very technical name. So the press, I bought that, right? Then I went on Amazon and I was looking up, what else did I get? Oh, I got two spatulas. And I got this little dome that's a half dome that's that I put over my vegetables to kind of get them steamed a little bit so they don't have to just get grilled on top. They can kind of get steamed. I bought that thing, right? So I bought all these different accessories. I'm not done. Right? Like there's other things that I'm going to want, or I bought a cover for it, right? That was another thing I bought for it. So is there more opportunity for someone to try to sell to me or sell to my wife that wants to buy me a funny apron, right? Like, so there's just more there. That doesn't mean that you can't still sell to that. It's just, that's a secondary sale in my eyes, a secondary smaller audience that I still would want to probably sell to, but I want to sell to the person that's actively in it, right? Actively doing. But Etsy is known for gifts, right? I bet you, I don't know the exact number, but there's got to be 60% of sales is probably for gifts, for people buying gifts. That's why Q4 is like their biggest ever, right? Q4 is gifts. It's more so than Amazon. Amazon is like, you want to go there to get a new cord for your laptop. You go there. You don't go to Etsy, right? It's just different.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is if you're creating the stuff for the person in the niche, there's going to be some crossover. Like, Scott, how often are you really into something and Lisa has no idea about anything related to the thing that you're in? I would say that has probably never happened in the entire time that you guys have been married. She at least hears you say one of the funny phrases or like, man, Scott's really into grilling. Etsy, gifts for people who are way too into grilling, right? It's going to be one of those things. And if you're creating the stuff for the person and you're thinking about somebody who's really, really into grilling, you're going to be creating those aprons. You're going to be creating those things that the person looking for the person into that niche are going to find anyway. You might not get some of the niche, like audience building phrases and some of those kinds of things that are like really specific, but you are going to get more of the general traffic just by focusing on the person who is in the niche. And Scott, it just occurred to me that you are clearly not from Philadelphia, because the first thing I would have been making on that grill is a cheesesteak.
Oh,
and I cannot believe that you have not made cheesesteaks yet.
Listen, okay, I just called that out there on my deck. I called it my kitchen now, right? I said that last night. I said I got to get out there and clean up my kitchen, which cleanup is a snap. But basically, years ago, when I was working in high school. I worked at a restaurant and I had the 2 spatulas identical to what I got right now. And I used to cook a mean Philly steak, right? And so I was just saying this to my son. Well, his now wife just got married. And I said to her, I said, I used to make so much noise with this thing and people be looking, and because I'd be, taking it and chopping it all up and flipping onions and doing all that stuff. And I loved it. It was actually fun. And now it kind of brought me back to my childhood in a sense, because I worked there when I was like 14 till I was about 18. And that's what I did. I cooked in the grill and I loved it. Same type of griddle too and everything. So it kind of brought back memories. But yeah, Philly steak is definitely on the menu, and I'm glad that you brought that up because that's something that I might want to do tomorrow night. Tonight we can't. We've got a beach volleyball, but maybe tomorrow night Philly steak might be on the menu.
That's the one thing I can't find outside.
Dude, I'm doing
this is a decent Philly cheesesteak, and so if
I'm
you
gonna
can,
make
tease me with that,
I'm gonna send you pictures of that, man.
Yeah, I know you will. I'll get a video or two, and that'll be okay. I have my one a year from the place that I like when I come home at Christmas, but it's all good. You'll have to give Pat's and Geno's a run for their money, and we'll see what happens. But that's yet another thing, right? So, okay, Philly cheesesteak is kind of the stereotypical thing that people think of when they think of a griddle. And so there's a lot of jokes there. There's a lot of passion in that niche about who makes the best Philly cheesesteak, about, the correct bun, about all of these kinds of things. Yeah. And so you can make all kinds of jokes about that would appeal to everyone in that niche. And their wife, husband, significant other, aunt, uncle, whoever is going to be buying gifts from them are naturally going to tie into that if they know anything about the thing that they are into. So if we think about the person who is the ideal person to be in our audience, it's never going to be the person giving a gift. It's going to be the person who's actually doing the grilling in this case. If we can focus on them, everybody else will come into the fold. And then when the person who's really in our niche goes to buy their accessories, they're going to buy not 1, not 2, but 5, 10, 15 things from us because they know that we understand them and that we're creating the things that they really want.
Yeah, love it. All right, guys, that is going to wrap it up for today. We covered a lot. So here's what I want you guys to do though. If you are watching this on the YouTube channel, go ahead and like and subscribe. If you would do that, that would be amazing. That's how you can pay us. That's how you can reward us. It's very simple. You just go ahead and you click that like button a little bit, and then you go ahead and just leave a comment and subscribe to the channel, and you'll get more content like this because we're going to keep showing up. And and if you guys want to go through our YouTube audience building workshop that we just did, it's about 4 hours long, and we broke that up, so don't get overwhelmed. We actually broke it up into sections after we did it. We literally went on though for 4 hours, and people all hung out there in class, so that was pretty awesome. So it's all there for you now if you want to go through it. We do go through thumbnail creation, which is a huge thing. I actually show you me creating one that we posted here on the channel. We did go through some video editing, but then we also went through like how to create an effective hook in the very beginning, and like what is our formula that we've been using and what are we learning, because we're not done. And we'll probably do another class and we'll do whatever we've learned so far in that from our channel and the new one that we've started with a good buddy of mine. So if you're interested, make sure that you check that out, brandcreators.com/YT, and you can get full access immediately to that on-demand class now. All right. So that is going to wrap it up. Thank you guys once again for hanging out with us on this episode, and let us know how you guys are doing. If you have any questions, by all means, put them in the comments. As always, guys, take care, take action, have an awesome, amazing day, and we'll see you right back here on the next episode. Take care, guys.